Kyk, toe ek nog jong was, my ouma het altyd gesê, raai net vir my weer, ja, toe hoor ek dit mense sê. Soms hoor ek maar net, ek almal nie.
Dis die 2 April en jy luister na KLETS net hier op Afrikaans.radio. Het jy April Fool's Day oorleef, Colene?
Ag, Matthys, weet jy wat ek wens op hierdie stadium, dat iemand net 'n poets, daar's 'n P vir jou, Matthys, 'n poets, op my wou bak, want dit sou welkom gewees het, want op hierdie stadium is alles so fucking ernstig, hè?
Alles is ernstig
en nog steeds vinnig en baie en chaos en niemand weet wat die hel aangaan nie.
Ja, wel, ek weet nie, ons gaan 'n bietjie later oor praat oor die begroting en kom ons doen dit sommer klaar. So later.
Ja, waaroor praat ons vandag?
Waaroor praat ons, Colene? Oor die begroting, vinnig, groot nuus, maybe is dit 'n April Fool's joke, who knows. Dan het ons 'n kenner, jou Jiu-jitsu coach, praat met ons vandag, Stef, oor Jiu-jitsu en oor
selfverdediging.
Ja, selfverdediging, dankie. Daai is die woord. En dan
jou
is
eie
daar
krag terug.
Presies, net so. En dan is daar 'n vrou wat haar 10de kind het en 'n entrepreneur in Johannesburg wat geld maak by taxi ranks op 'n interessante manier. So kom ons begin dalk eers 'n ander ding. Ek sien almal praat daaroor en ons het nie daaroor gepraat nie. Dis 5 jaar na lockdown. Ek probeer regtig dit eintlik ignoreer. Maar ek sien it makes big news en mense bespiegel, betwis, bepeins, fucking weet nie wat alles oor wat gebeur het en maar daai dag toe jy vir my daai boodskap stuur om te sê dis die herdenking, toe ek 'n naar gevoel op my maag.
Absoluut. Ag nee, Matthys, het ons so geflous, nee, en 5 jaar down the line begin ons nou besef hoeveel poep het hulle ons gevoer. En hoe, jy weet, as al een ding is wat ek dink ons moet almal leer, nie net as Suid-Afrikaners nie, maar as burgers van hierdie wêreld, is moenie altyd die mense in power glo nie, moenie altyd die mense glo met die grootste mikrofone en die public address platforms nie, moenie hulle glo nie. Ek dink, as al een ding is, ek hoop mense dit uit COVID uitgevat, is om te leer dink vir jouself, te leer jou eie navorsing doen, en te leer om verskillende opinies te gaan navors, en nie net dit wat jy inglo nie. Hier sit ons nou post-COVID en daai nare gevoel, Matthys, ek is eintlik bly ons het nie daaroor gepraat op die herdenking nie, want ek wil eintlik dit nie herdenk nie. Want dit was eintlik so 'n flippin, ek weet kakofonie is 'n samekoms of whatever, 'n mengelmoes van klanke, so dis seker nie eintlik, maar kakofonie is eintlik so 'n lekker woord vir my. Dit was nie
katarsis.
Dit was 'n fok op, nee, dit was 'n fok op. Katarsis. 'n katarsis. Dit was 'n absolute katarsis en jy weet, as ons nou daarop terugdink en ons moet eintlik regtig net op 'n stadium, nie nou nie, dalk wanneer ons beter voel daaroor, net regtig 'n bietjie, ek
Which is going to be never in my world, never.
Ja, maar mense wil nie eintlik daaroor praat nie. Jy weet, dis een van daai gesprekke ook as jy in 'n gesprek sit, jy praat nie daaroor nie, soos Trump. Daar's sekere mense, sekere dinnerparties, sekere braaie wat jy praat net nie, jy bring nie Trump op nie. En as iemand anders Trump opbring, dan sê jy, ek gaan gou help slaai maak. Ek sien Margriet het hulp nodig met die slaai. Ja, verskoon my.
My ouma het altyd gesê,
gaan nie.
Jy praat nooit oor politiek of geloof nie.
So, ons het 'n mutual vriend, ons het actually laasweek ook oor hom gepraat, ons moet eintlik 'n bietjie bel, hy's duidelik groot in ons geesgesprek, Rian van Heerden. En hy het eendag met 'n goeie vriendin van ons 'n gesprek gehad in een van sy kroe in Pretoria. Het hy daar gehad 'n klub daar in Pretoria.
Ja.
En ek dink dit was sy wat gesê het. Nee, was hy wat gesê het. Sy wou 'n klomp goed praat en hy sê toe vir haar, ek gaan nou my beste Rian van Heerden impersonation doen. Daar's 3 goed waar ek nie oor praat nie. Dit was nie 'n goeie een nie. Kom ek weer.
Rian kom nie van die Noord-Kaap af nie.
Nee. Daar's 3 goed waaroor ek nie praat nie. Politiek? Nee, Matthys, ek moet die storie korrek. Dit was ons vriendin wat dit gesê het. Haar naam begin met 'n R, sê sy al weet wie sy is, die rooi kop, né?
Ja.
Toe sê sy vir Rian, daar's 3 goed waaroor ek nie praat nie. Politiek, geloof en hoekom die fok is mense gay? En die gesprek het daar geëindig. Een van die min kere in my lewe wat ek vir Rian van Heerden stil gesien het.
Ja, ek kan dink daai sou omgegooi het. In odds.
Maar ja, COVID is een van daai dinge. Jy kies maar jou crowd met wie jy dit oor praat. Wie jy daaroor praat. En ek dink dit het ons baie skade gedoen. Ek dink die slotsom van die situasie is, as ons nou terugdink, werksverliese, besighede wat toegemaak het, mense wat in depressie ingegaan het en in absolute verknorsings gehad het en selfmoord gepleeg het, mense wat nie vir hulle mense kon baie sê in hospitale terwyl hulle dood gegaan het aan goed wat nie noodwendig COVID was nie. Mense wat alleen gesterf het, jy weet al daai goed. Dit was eintlik die prys wat ons betaal het vir human stupidity.
En ek het nou dag het ek 'n stat gelees ook en ek kan nou nie presies onthou wat daarin gestaan het nie, maar wat hulle sê, baie van die besighede wat nou vou, die afgelope laaste kwartaal van 2024, begin 2025, en daar's 'n hele klomp, die stat kan ek nie onthou nie, maar dit is eintlik angsbenemend, is baie die nadraai van COVID, want baie mense het nog persoonlike finansies ingedruk, planne gemaak, en nou is die planne net klaar.
Aan die velle van hulle tandvleise vasgehou.
Ja, en nou is die planne klaar. En probeer
die ding omdraai het.
En die probleem is, ons sit met 'n sukkelende ekonomie. Dit is eintlik ons ander groot probleem, en op daai punt, dis die vooraand van die begrotings se...
Weer eens, Matthys, weer eens. Take 3, guys, take 3.
Vooraand vir ons, dis Dinsdag aand, jy luister nou Woensdag, die dag van die begroting, en wat ek kan sien, is daar 'n dooie punt in die gesprek. Ek kan nie verstaan, of ek kan nie sien, dat daar enige beweging vorentoe is nie. Daar is alweer 'n plan ter tafel gelê, van dat nog 30 dae uitstel moet gee, vir 'n nuwe framework, en dit het lyk my teenkanting gekry, wat ek kan verstaan van Dr. Mark Burke, van die DA, sê hy dat hulle het hulle plan voorgelê, en hulle gaan nie omdraai oor die plan nie. Wat ek ook verstaan het, is dat net na die eerste ronde, het die DA apparently vir die ANC gesê, dat hier is ons plan, hier is ons voorstel, kom op 'n tafel. Die ANC het glo dit geïgnoreer, en stil gebly, en lyk my 4 dae terug, toe Cyril die telefoon opgetel, en gesê, okay, boys, nou moet ons praat. So dit wys jy net, dit is glad nie vir hulle belangrik nie. Hoeveel tyd het jy gehad, om hierdie ding te beredder, en te redeneer?
Ja, wat is ook iets wat iemand, en ek vergeet nou wie dit was, wat op die Business Conference ook gepraat het, oor die metodologie van die ANC, en dat dit is wat hulle doen. Elke keer as daar 'n groot besluit geneem moet word, dan vat hulle lank hulle tyd. En dan moet daai besluit byvoorbeeld môreoggend ter tafel gesit word. En dan die vorige aand, dan wag hulle tot 1:00 die volgende oggend om hulle goeders te submit. Dit is nog altyd, ek weet nie of dit 'n kultuur is, en of dit 'n strategie is nie, maar dit was maar nog altyd hulle ding. En Matthys, jy weet, ons almal sit nou hier in die donker, ons is Suid-Afrikaners. Ons die mense wat eintlik hierdie land, wat hulle ook aan die lewe hou, wat hierdie land aan die gang hou, en wat hulle pig eating faces ook aan die gang hou. Ons sit hier in die donker. Ek was nou net voordat ons nou begin rekord het, net gou weer op media, tradisionele media, sowel as sosiale media, nuwe media, om te probeer uitvind wat is die nuutste. Is hierdie VAT increase nou gepaas? Jy weet, wat is die storie? En al wat ek kry, spesifiek wat jy ook nou gesê het, daar's nou 'n nuwe ding ter tafel gelê, en hulle gaan nou weer debatteer daaroor. Behalwe vir een of ander rede Discovery Bank, weet, want ek het nie minder as 30 minute 'n notification van my Discovery Bank afgekry, my bank app afgekry, om te sê dat, net om jou in kennis te stel, dat daar gaan 'n price adjustment wees, gegrond op die nuwe VAT increase, wat effektief inkom die 1 Mei. So, ja, ek weet,
Maybe
Discovery Bank weet al iets.
Maybe weet Adrian Gore iets.
Wat die res van ons nou duidelik weet. Weet Matthys, 'n ander skokkende ding vir my was, dit was ook, wat is sy naam, is dit Mark Burke?
Mark Burke, Dr. Mark Burke.
So hy is die finansiële public speaker van die DA.
Ja, woordvoerder,
ja. So hy het ook in 'n onderhoud gesê, vroeër vandag, 'n paar statistieke voorgelê wat vir my absoluut skokkend was. Die begroting wat tans voorgelê is deur die ANC, en ek gaan dit noem die ANC, want dit was nie die regering nie. Daai is die ANC se begroting.
Ja, dis nie 'n regering van nasionale eenheid nie, want begroting nie, dis hoekom ons op 'n dooie punt is.
Ja, so volgens Mark Burke, inflasie een kant toe geskuif, is ons huidige begroting wat voorgelê is deur die ANC 3 maal groter as die begroting wat in 1995 deur Nelson Mandela se regering voorgelê is. 3 maal groter. Eet 'n bietjie daaraan julle. Ekskuus nie, julle gaan nie daaraan kan eet nie, want die ANC eet reeds daaraan. So daar's niks vir julle nie, jammer.
Ek het nou eendag iets gehoor, hulle sê mos, you are what you eat. En toe sê die persoon, hy kan nie onthou dat hy 'n arm blanke geëet het nie, want hierdie werk vir hom glad nie. So ja, ek dink dis die meeste van ons voel. Ja, so ek weet nie wat met hierdie begroting gaan gebeur nie. Ek het geen idee nie. Ek dink die begroting het 'n ander ding ook gekyk, dis 'n woordsom. Kom ons kyk hoe goed is jy met woordsomme.
Ek was altyd baie goed met
was jy goed daarmee? Okay. So die ding is in dollars gedoen, die woordsom. So 'n bill by 'n restaurant is $30. En 3 mense sit om die tafel. Hulle split dit eweredig, so elke persoon betaal $10. Die waiter kom agter dat hy het hulle ge-overcharge en die bill is eintlik net $25. Hy besef toe, daar's $5 oor, hoe gaan hy dit split tussen 3 mense? Hy dink toe, hy gaan $1 teruggee vir elke persoon en $2 gaan hy self pocket. So elkeen het in effek dan $9 betaal. $9 maal 3 is?
3 maal 9 is 27. Ek het my vingertjies gebruik het gesê.
Okay. 27 plus die $2 wat hy gepak het. Hoeveel is dit?
Is 29.
So waar is die ander dollar?
Ja. Ek weet nie, maar dit is seker maar tax.
Ek weet nie.
Dis nie fucking ANC se sak in. Ek sê jou nou.
Dit is wat ek sê. Dit is hoe hulle somme doen. Ons vat 'n bietjie hier, maar ek gaan dit vir myself vat en vir jou 'n bietjie teruggee en dan iewerste is daar R1 biljoen weg.
Kan ek net sê wat is die eerste fout met daai woordsom volgens my? Ja. Is dat die bill is $30 en hulle betaal net $30. Wat van die tip?
Ja, maar jy onthou hoe werk dit aan die ander kant. Onthou hoe werk dit. Jy sit dit mos in en dan betaal jy die tip apart. Dis mos 'n moerse storie. Werk anders te daar.
Okay, so ek sal dit nie, maar ek voel net mense moet 'n bietjie meer kind wees teenoor mense om hulle. Ek voel net die laaste 2 dae, mense is baie harsh op mense. Ons moet net 'n bietjie kinder wees en mense acknowledge vir die werk wat hulle doen.
So van dit gepraat. Die hele Jocelyn saak is obviously op almal se lippe oop. En ou Guyton is baie bedrywig en hy het 'n paar uitlatings gemaak. Jy het die onderhoud geluister wat daar met Guyton was. Ek het nog nie tyd gehad om dit te luister nie. Maar dit wat ek gelees het en dit wat jy vir my gesê het, praat die man nogal sens.
Ja, Matthys, kyk hy het 'n manier om 'n storie te vertel, genade. Nie 'n manier wat ek van hou nie. Dit het baie draaie en baie repetasies, maar ja, hy klink repetisies. Ja. Hy klink amper soos ek weet nie, hy klink amper soos daai dronk ou oom by die bar wat 'n ou oorlogstorie vertel. Maar hy vertel vir hom seker goed, en dit wat hy in 'n uur en 'n half vertel het op daai self-recording van hom, kon hy eintlik maar in 'n halfuur gedoen het, maar dit is pretty gripping. En Matthys, hierdie is 'n ding wat my nogal aan die hart geraak het, vandat ek gehoor het, hierdie meisiekind is weg, Jocelyn Smith.
Ja.
En dit is 'n moerse sad story. En daar is net soveel gapings. Ek volg die nuus daaroor, ek volg die jy weet die polisie se verklaringe oor wat hulle gevind het. Ek volg die court proceedings en alles is my baie wyk en daar is my soveel gate. En net soveel dinge van niks hier kom by mekaar uit nie. En toe luister ek hierdie Guyton interview en gaan doen julle self 'n guns gaan luister dit. Ek dink is op die ding se naam is Daily Update ZA of something. Een of 'n random ding wat op my YouTube feed opgekom het. Joh, Matthys, daar is potensieel as Guyton reg is en as Guyton feitelik is en Guyton waag nogal baie op. Hy sê hy is bereid om tronk toe te gaan vir hierdie goed wat hy sê. Dan is hier 'n baie groter ding uitbly. 'n Ding wat vir my baie direk link aan die ongelooflike toename in die syfer van human trafficking in Suid-Afrika. Die misterieuse verdwyning van
eintlik oor iets praat nie, né? Dit is so iets wat onder die tafel ingegooi word. No one says anything about it. It's not in mainstream media.
Ontvoerings, Matthys, ek dink ek sê dit nogal in ons interview met Stef ook, maar ontvoerings, ek het dit net gaan double check, want ek het dit daai dag so half of the cuff gesê, maar Suid-Afrika is tans die land met die hoogste syfer van ontvoerings, vir either human trafficking, of vir een of ander ransom, ek neem aan Moetie, het ook soos wat dinge nou uitkom in die Jocelyn Smith saak, julle kan ons agterkom dat hierdie was nie vir Moetie nie. Hierdie was vir iets anders. Kyk, en daai kind is striking. Sy's moerse striking. Sy's beautiful, sy het die ongelooflikste penetrating pair of eyes.
Yeah.
She's just a gorgeous kid. En ja, there's so much more, maar Suid-Afrika tans is die land met die hoogste ontvoeringssyfer in Afrika. Nou hierdie is scary, Matthys. Ek onthou 'n paar jaar terug toe my ma nog jy sal nou weet, jy was in my lewe daai tyd, my ma baie Afrika getravel en by die goudmyne gaan negotiate en ek het altyd my gat afgestres elke keer as sy DRC toe is of Mali toe of Ghana toe of whatever. En sy het altyd hierdie groot konvooi van mense om haar wat haar protect, van die grootste threat vir haar was kidnapping. So ons het altyd gedink, ja, as jy Kigali toe gaan of as jy wherever toe gaan in Afrika, Wes-Afrika, Oos-Afrika, Noord-Afrika, daar gaan jy gekidnap word. Fok, ek is amper gekidnap in Senegal, in Noord-Afrika. Jy weet, jy dink nie daaraan, maar Suid-Afrika het actually die grootste ontvoeringssyfer. En dit is baie scary, Matthys. En weet jy wat, ons regering en ons polisie kom nie om ons te help nie. Dit is weer eens een van daai syfers wat escalate en escalate en escalate. En ons regering gee nie aandag hieraan nie, want hulle is te besig om te power play. Hulle is te besig om te veg vir hulle plekkie by die big throat. So dis nog iets wat net gaan skuil en ons moet pas op. Ons moet ons eie maniere kry om onsself te verdedig.
Ja, ek vind dit is as jy gaan kyk na die uitlatings wat hulle die afgelope ruk gemaak het ook en ek het dit nie gefact-check nie, ek het nie gaan kyk nie, maar die hele geskil met Afriforum oor die plaasmoorde ook en die polisie sê daar was net 1 of 2 in dieselfde periode en Afriforum sê hulle het bewyse van baie meer, dan wonder ek net, kan ons enigstens die statistiek van die polisie vertrou?
Nee,
en
ek dink nie ons
'n ander ding wat jy gesê het ook, wat Guyton kind of allude in sy onderhoud, is dat daar groot magte en politieke rolspelers betrokke is, moontlik, by hierdie spesifieke saak.
Hy is baie duidelik daaroor, dat daar is mense met baie geld betrokke hier, en daar is politieke intervensie, wat hierdie girl en ander kinders, hy noem dit in die onderhoud, hy sê, Jocelyn is die sleutel, tot 'n baie groter syndikaat hier, van kinders wat verdwyn in Suid-Afrika. En ja, Matthys, hier is ons weer eens uitgelewer aan nog iets. aan nog iets.
So dis juist een van die redes.
Gelukkig is ek en jy is darm te arm. Okay,
Ons is te oud.
Moet sê ek en jy is te arm en ek is te lelik. Niemand gaan my wil opdak, nee.
Nee, en ek is te
Ek
oud.
het nie genoeg geld nie, my ouers het nie genoeg geld nie. Jy's grumpy. Ja, niemand wil jou fucking aanhou nie. Jy's grumpy.
Niemand wil my nie. So dis juist hoekom ons besluit het ons gaan met Stef praat, jou Jiu-jitsu coach.
Ja. So Stef is 'n absolute fenominale deel van my lewe en my journey in Jiu-jitsu, en sy het net so amazing journey, en sy vertel vir julle dit in hierdie onderhoud, maar Stef is tans 'n blou beld in Jiu-jitsu en ook 'n coach, maar sy het nie daar martial arts in die begin nie, hulle het ook 'n swart beld, manne. Klein potjie gif, klein gultjie, maar moet haar nie onderskat nie, sy sal vir jou plat trek, en 'n amazing mind en het 'n beautiful spirit, en die ding wat ek die meeste waardeer van Stef is hoe sy al daai 3, haar lyf, haar brein en haar siel bymekaar kan bring en dit ground en so vir mense leer hoe om hulle eie mag weer terug te kry. Stef, over the past year I've been driving everyone, including Matthijs, crazy with all of my stories of jiu-jitsu and trying to convince everyone to come and join me on the mat and start doing jiu-jitsu. I think some days I sound like a bit of a cult member. So today I'm very excited to introduce to everyone my cult leader, aka my jiu-jitsu coach, Stephanie Graham. Welcome, Steph. Really good to have you here. And I'm looking forward to also learn maybe a few new things about you. You've had such an illustrious journey throughout martial arts. I mean, a black belt in karate, that takes most people a lifetime to attain. And then a blue belt in jiu-jitsu. And also coach status in jiu-jitsu. Share with us what inspired this journey.
Wow, I'm going to have to take you back right to a little 6-year-old Steph watching movies like The Karate Kid and The Three Ninjas on TV, and going up to my parents at the age of 6 or 7 and saying, I want to be a ninja, and kind of begging and pushing them to find me some form of martial art to get me involved in. And there happened to be a karate instructor at my school, and that's where it all started. And then fast track to present day, and I turned that little dream from a 6-7-year-old girl into now I'm a full-time jiu-jitsu coach, getting to be the leader of a cult to you, Colene, and make you fully drink the Kool-Aid. So thanks for allowing me. Yeah, the main ninja. So it's been a journey of,
But you've also lived in so many countries, Steph, and you just have found a way. It's always for me so interesting when people find something that they're that passionate about. It doesn't matter where they go. You know, we as human beings, we find it so easy to just make excuses. Oh no, I've stopped doing jiu-jitsu because I don't live near close. I've moved and I don't live close to a studio anymore. But you've just managed to keep on finding ways to practice your discipline no matter what, because this is not the only thing that you've done in your life, right?
No, you've caught me there. So obviously started with karate throughout my childhood, managed to get my black belt at 18, moved to Thailand after studying at Rhodes University, and there I just took on Muay Thai because that was the main martial art there. So got myself into an amateur Muay Thai match when I was living in Thailand. That was a bit of a bucket list event for me. I didn't win. My opponent was 20 kgs heavier than me, but it was quite the experience. There was no weight classes in that amateur match. Moved on to the Netherlands, and that's kind of where I settled into jiu-jitsu. And then once I came back to South Africa, found Gracie Jiu-jitsu in Fourways, and I've been there ever since.
Can you maybe just do a scene setter for us? Because we're talking about karate, we're talking about jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
So that's all in the martial arts playground. What exactly is martial arts? Because we see movies like Karate Kid and we see people throwing around people, but what is the essence of it? What is the deep founding values?
And everyone currently is just obsessed with mixed martial arts, and Drickus is the latest obsession. Yeah.
So I would say martial arts as the umbrella term just describes all of these modalities or different branches of self-defense or fighting training. So it would be karate, judo, taekwondo, jiu-jitsu. And if we talk about mixed martial arts, that's the combination of all of these things working together in synergy to make you the perfect fighter. Like if we look at how MMA or mixed martial arts has exploded internationally because of fighters like Drickus, because of the UFC, EFC locally, so all of these fight promotions, which then stream these matches live. I would say mixed martial arts has become its own form of martial art, and that started way back in the 90s with UFC 1. And UFC 1 was actually started by the Gracies, and that's kind of where jiu-jitsu exploded onto the more mainstream, I guess, market in terms of picking martial arts, because of how effective it was within UFC 1. So way back in the day, just to give you a little brief history of what Drickus does now, UFC never used to be like that. You'd have 4 fights in one night, and it would be specific martial arts competing against the other one to find which is the most effective. So it would be jiu-jitsu versus taekwondo. Then the next match would be, if jiu-jitsu won, they would verse another martial art, and then they would see which martial art is superior. As it's developed, your fighters in UFC have wrestling, have jiu-jitsu, have stand-up. So that's slowly molded and changed over the years to become its own art.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just share with us a story a bit about the Gracies and how jiu-jitsu evolved, where it was born, and what makes jiu-jitsu specifically so unique.
So jiu-jitsu actually originates from Japan. So Japanese jiu-jitsu began many years prior, and the Gracie brothers started training this Japanese jiu-jitsu, and Helio Gracie, actually the founder of Brazilian jiu-jitsu, he was a really small man, weak and frail in comparison to his brothers. So he couldn't do the same techniques and moves that his brothers could. So when he started to watch the art, he altered it and changed it to suit his size so that he could defeat and defend himself against opponents that outweighed him by 3-4 times his weight. And that was kind of the birth of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. He started teaching that in Brazil. How that started to evolve and move to America was with the Gracie family tree. There were lots of children. They then moved on to America, brought Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu there. Now, way back in the day, they used to have these test matches. So a very skilled karateka, for example, or taekwondo person would enter the gym wanting to have a match against a jiu-jitsu person so that they could see whether their martial art was superior. Don't really know if they do those anymore, but that's kind of what happened, throughout the 90s, 80s, way back in the day, before now we have UFC, for example.
And a lot of people start doing a discipline like jiu-jitsu because they want to be competitive and they want to fight and they want to get the big belts. But there's also a big space that something like jiu-jitsu fills in terms of being able to defend yourself, being able to survive a conflict situation, and especially looking at a country like South Africa where we have such a high rate of contact crimes, armed robbery, sexual assault. We've got one of the biggest highest rates of gender-based violence in the world. What's principles from jiu-jitsu can assist us as ordinary, non-competing fighters, if you will, to enhance not only our ability to protect ourselves and to fight back, Steph, but also things like, building our confidence, sharpening our situational awareness, learning to avoid danger before it even happens?
So when it comes to competitive jiu-jitsu, or if we just take Brazilian jiu-jitsu as a whole, there are definitely two branches of it. There's the kind of jiu-jitsu that you get into as a competitive sport, and then there is jiu-jitsu for self-defense. And as you mentioned, Colene, especially if you look at South Africa and gender-based violence and just the numbers and statistics, our reality is the fact that there are many perpetrators out there. There are many bad guys out there. And as much as we want the perpetrator to change, so for example, there is an Instagram group called Women for Change SA. They post a lot of statistics on gender-based violence, and they're doing a union meeting or protest in April. And it's obviously to raise awareness to perpetrators, bad guys, whoever the person is that inflicts these crimes. But unfortunately, the reality is the perpetrator is not going to change.
Yeah.
We can't change. There will always be a villain, right?
Yeah.
There will always be a bad guy. So as you mentioned, what does the jiu-jitsu do for us in terms of that self-defense mindset? So we could be here all day talking about what can we do to change the perpetrators, or let's get them all in jail. Let's make sure they have longer sentences, harsher punishments. But that's so vast and wide.
It's not going to happen.
That's it. So let's bring that back into the micro universe of your everyday life, the community that you operate in, and just your experience as a person on this planet and what you can do to build your confidence. And that's what I love about doing a martial art like jiu-jitsu, because it's not only the physical techniques that help you build confidence. So one aspect is cool. It's good for fitness. You're learning a new skill. You're developing how to defend yourself. That's the physical aspect. But what I love about hopping onto the mat and doing jiu-jitsu is there is a mental switch or a mind change that takes place. So if I look at women in particular, you're getting onto a mat, which for many years throughout the 90s has been a male-dominated sport. Think about those old, dingy martial arts gyms. They're sweaty and the men are rolling on top of each other. As a female, you're going to walk into that space and probably not want to do a class. No. As much as we'd love to. But now you have the opportunity to enter a space, and it's very courageous stepping onto the mat in the first place, and you're developing this skill. And what I see in my woman is it's more about how their aura changes. It's more about how their energy changes. So self-defense starts with the belief that you are worth defending. And when you know you are worth defending, that is when you can do verbal de-escalation, verbal boundary setting, whether that's in a scenario where a stranger approaches you and you feel uncomfortable, or someone you know approaches you or says something inappropriate, breaks a physical boundary and touches you inappropriately. In many cases, we want to look away from the problem and avert our eyes because we feel, okay, well, maybe if I just ignore that comment, or maybe if I look away from this stranger that I feel very uncomfortable with, they'll just go away. But the biggest deterrent for perpetrators is someone who is aware, makes eye contact, like, hey, you're making me feel uncomfortable. Please step away. Or what you said to me was inappropriate.
It's you making me feel uncomfortable, but here I am. I'm standing my ground.
And we also often don't do that because we're so afraid to offend someone. I don't want to call you out because maybe I'm wrong and then I'm totally going to offend you. And when it comes to your personal safety, offending someone should be the last on your list of priorities.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Also what I'm very interested in, I mean, I've been in your classes and absolutely it's so beautiful when you say to me, you can see a change in our auras, because I can absolutely feel it when I step onto the mat. I don't think there's been a single day that I've stepped onto the mat where I stepped on with full confidence. There's always that bit of, I'm always a bit scared because there's always something that is going to challenge me or something that I feel unsure about. And within the first few minutes, you can really feel that disappearing and you can feel your confidence coming back. And I mean, the ladies that you work with, that we're such a cool group of ladies, and we're such a big class again at the moment, which is so encouraging to see ladies join this. But the hard fact is, Steph, that there's a lot of ladies, and I know you work with kids as well, there's a lot of ladies with very deep trauma stepping onto that mat. And that trauma can be easily re-triggered. I mean, I think of something like the weapons class that we did just this Saturday, where we work with fake but very real-looking guns and knives. And that can be very triggering to someone who has been in a life-threatening situation with said gun or knife. I read on your CV as well that you are a trauma-informed coach. So how does that help to create the safe space and trust, and the strategies that you use to make ladies feel safe on the mat in order to overcome that trauma?
Absolutely. And I see you've done your homework, Colene. I had to.
I'm talking to my coach here. I read something, Steph. That's a private joke. Sorry, guys. Yeah.
I'm glad that you've been reading some things. So let me just briefly explain trauma-informed coach, because this doesn't mean that I have the ability to do trauma counseling on somebody. So it is not that I'm a trauma counselor. It is more that I have done a course with a woman in Germany. She actually owns a jiu-jitsu gym there as well. And she developed this course because the reality is, as you have men or women or children that come and seek out martial arts, often a lot of these people are seeking out that art because of a previous trauma that they have experienced. So the possibility of being re-triggered, having a flashback or a panic attack on the mat is very likely. Now, if you go into a gym, what do they have in the cupboard? They have a first aid kit. So if you scratch yourself or injure yourself, we can take a plaster and we can cover the physical wound. But what a lot of people don't realize, what about the internal wound? So if you hop onto the mat, where is the mental health first aid kit? And not a lot of coaches or instructors have this. Whereas I started my very first women empowered seminar. So every couple of months we do a free seminar. I was still a very new instructor at the time, and we did one of these seminars, and one of the ladies was very triggered by one of the scenarios that we were describing. And I remember that she sat on the side of the mat and she was crying. And I was so frustrated with myself because I didn't know how to hold space for her. And I didn't have the tools yet. I didn't have the skills. So I sought out this trauma-informed coaching for mixed martial arts program because I needed to know. I needed the mental health first aid kit so that if someone is triggered on the mats, then we can move them to a safe space. We can re-ground them. So all that means is I understand re-grounding techniques. I know what to do when someone is triggered or has a flashback on the mat. That's what I find important. Like if you're going to operate in a space where a lot of people have had a previous trauma, you need to have the skill to hold them in that space to make it a safer space for their journey to recovery from that trauma. So like with the weapons class, there's two aspects to jiu-jitsu. Jiu-jitsu can be very confronting and in some ways triggering because of an existing trauma. But what we do is if you create a safe enough space, then you can slowly over time widen that person's window of tolerance. And what I mean by that is as they regain confidence in their body, as they feel more comfortable in a situation or with jiu-jitsu, they slowly heal that trauma. And I just want to give you an example from our headquarters in Los Angeles. So Gracie Jiu-jitsu in Los Angeles, there was a woman. She was actually assaulted on a beach in LA. She went to the police and after she gave her report, she was like, what do I do now? And the only thing the police officer could say to her was, well, there's a jiu-jitsu school up the road. You could do some self-defense. That might help. And she used to have recurring nightmares of the assault, even during this period of time that she started jiu-jitsu. And one day she dreamt that she armbarred, so she broke the arm of her attacker. And after that, she never had a nightmare again. So through jiu-jitsu, she rewrote that story and managed to heal that part of the trauma. And that's the beauty of jiu-jitsu, or making sure it's a safe enough space for people to heal.
I'll never forget that story that you just shared, Steph, because you shared it with me one day as well, when I shared with you a story of also being re-triggered on the mat in a trauma that I experienced a few years ago that I actually thought I was over. And there was one day in jiu-jitsu, and we were doing some kind of, I can't even remember what move we were practicing. And all of this came back in such a clear, vivid image to me, this trauma that happened to me. And immediately I started blaming myself. And I was like, you're so stupid. If you only knew this then, this wouldn't have happened to you. It wouldn't have happened to you. And the story that you shared with me that day about this lady that was assaulted on the beach, I literally went away from the gym that day and started visualizing that terrible thing that happened to me, but started visualizing how I changed the situation in my mind and how I became the victor. And that had an immense effect on me, and really, I think, helped me to get over that trauma better than any psychologist could have done. So yeah, thank you for that.
I love that.
Yeah.
While we're speaking now about traumas and things that happen and real life events, can we maybe make it a bit practical? So let's say that I am the person on the beach, or maybe even more realistic in South Africa, something like a smash and grab. So I am in my car in traffic at a traffic light. What should I do and what can I do in order to feel more aware, feel more safe, and maybe to get out of a situation like that?
Yeah. The reality, obviously, in our country is that we are prone to smash and grabs, hijackings, pickpocketing, situations like this. And I'll start with awareness. So the one thing about learning a martial art is it just makes you more aware of your surroundings. So let's talk before the smash and grab even happens. Yeah. This is unfair, but it is a reality of our country that we do need to be more aware. So in a situation where you're in traffic or you're driving, don't be on your phone. Be aware of your surroundings. Be aware of the people approaching your cars, as we always have lots of people at the traffic lights that we stop at. Always keep a little bit of a safe distance between yourself and the car in front of you so that you have space in these situations. If someone's approaching your car, whether they're trying to sell something, you can always raise your hands, eye contact, and say to them, listen, I don't want anything. So before they can even get close to the window. So that's the first thing. When you put yourself in a martial arts school, you start to develop a mindset of more awareness, expanding your awareness and just being alert. And it's, as I mentioned, it's unfair, but it is our reality. So it is the reality that we have to take control of. Now, a lot of people think that they're aware and they're like, oh, it happens so quickly. And sometimes it does. Sometimes you're quickly checking your Google Maps or slightly distracted. We are human at the end of the day. So in that moment, now the smash and grab is happening. We always say in our weapons defense class in Women Empowered, the reality is if it is a material item, no material item is worth your life. So if there is a smash and grab, but a material item is stolen, the reality is it is not worth pursuing that person.
Just let it go.
Just let it go. The reality is, are you safe? Yes. Look, it happened. Maybe we now need to revisit. Are you aware? Are you alert when you're driving around? But no material possession is worth your life. It is different when that perpetrator or that bad guy is now trying to get you into isolation. So it's not about the laptop that's on the front seat that you forgot about or the cell phone in your hand. It's about you. Then the scenario becomes very different because your life is in danger.
Let's maybe move into something like a hijacking. So that person is now in your car. or
where you get to the point in the attack where they're trying to take you into isolation. They're trying to take you away.
Yeah, I was struggling to find the word isolation. It's still early. I don't have all my English words yet.
You live in isolation, Matthijs, so.
Isolation because of the reality around us? Just become a little bit of a hermit?
Because he's a grumpy guy.
Colene established last week. So yeah, let's say it escalates and maybe it is not a smash and grab. It's now maybe a hijacking. What can I do?
Oh, it's complex, because when it comes to a hijacking, are we saying there are weapons involved? Typically, in a hijacking, there are.
I think mostly there would usually be a weapon involved. So let's use that real life example.
In this particular example, I'm going to run through the rule set or the guidelines that we like to follow in our Women Empowered program when we're dealing with weapons defense. Obviously, the weapons defense that we deal with is specifically a sexual assault scenario on a woman, and it is a single perpetrator or attacker. A hijacking can be one or multiple people, which is probably a far more complex scenario to try and paint the picture when it comes to self-defense.
We use an example of a one-on-one attack with a weapon, because I think a hijacking, there's so many other things that come into play with a hijacking, and an anti-hijacking expert can bring in a lot more things that you need to do and become aware of. But I think maybe a better example for you to illustrate what to do is the example of a one-on-one attack with a weapon. So in a parking lot or
absolutely
some kind of public space.
Maybe even before let's say the abduction takes place, but it can still involve a weapon and them trying to get you into a vehicle, right? So, and this has happened before. So I've had a student on our mats, and her husband was involved in a situation, and we hear this a lot on the news. Someone goes into the supermarket, they come out, someone points a gun at them and gets them to get into their vehicle and drive to a second location. So if I just use our rule sets to kind of paint this picture, if someone approaches you in a parking lot and you are unaware and they have a knife or a gun and they're threatening you, number one, are they asking for a material thing? So is it your handbag? Is it the laptop? You're standing in the parking lot, you've just been cornered. Give it to them. So as we mentioned before, no material possession is worth your life. If they take it and leave, then you manage to control the situation in some way. And even though you lost the phone and the handbag, you're safe. Because remember, we're looking at number one is your safety. Number two, things get complicated when they're using the knife or the gun to try and get you to go into the vehicle, to try and get you to a second location. So what we want is to avoid going into isolation with them. Statistically, if someone takes you into isolation with a gun or a knife, your chances of survival are significantly lowered, right? So they might say, like, I won't hurt you if you get into the vehicle. Ideally, what you want is to stay in the parking lot where you know the surroundings, and there is a potential for what we call bystander intervention. Possibility for other people to get involved and see the situation. Yeah. So anything that you can do to avoid getting into the vehicle with them. Obviously, that's quite tricky. If we scream and shout, they might be spooked. I always say to my ladies, and it sounds quite harsh, but I'd rather be injured by a weapon in a parking lot where bystanders can find me than be in isolation and not know where I am and still be injured. So there is that aspect. Here's the thing, when it comes to rule number 2, maybe you have to fake compliance. Maybe it's your vehicle and you know it's your car. So you get into the passenger seat with them, but knowing that the moment they start to roll away and the car is at a low speed, you can open the door and roll out. Right?
Yeah.
So
almost like that fake surrender.
That false surrender, that idea of false surrender, like, okay, listen, I'll do whatever you want. I'll get into the passenger seat. No problem. And then car starts going off, open the door, roll out, and you don't get into that isolated space. So that is the ideal. But if you happen to be in isolation with them, and now obviously we're talking a one-on-one situation, maybe particularly a sexual assault, we always say try and negotiate the weapon out of the situation. So this is again that, fake compliance, like, listen, you don't need the weapon. I'll follow your orders. I'll do whatever you want. Please put the weapon down. And that's just cooperation, but to a point. In jiu-jitsu, I always say to my ladies, this is a situation. Now we're talking, you're way down the barrel of the gun. This is your Hail Mary moment because they have a weapon and you're isolated. So that's going to be a decision you need to make. How am I going to get out of this? And for someone who's doing jiu-jitsu, for our ladies, it's like, okay, I'm in a situation. They've still got the weapon. It's me or them. We're going to use our jiu-jitsu to try our best to get the weapon from them. And that's kind of the full progression. Obviously, ideally, if we follow rules 1 and 2, and people can follow those rules and might still end up in that situation. So I'm not saying this is a fail-safe. I'm not saying, okay, give them your handbag and say, I'm not going with you and you'll be fine. So just that everyone knows this is... Yeah.
Steph, this is becoming a very clear reality for us in South Africa as well as abductions. I heard a very interesting statistic. I can't remember exactly the statistic, but I think it was something around 5,000 people in the last half of 2024. 5,000 kidnappings where people get kidnapped in South Africa for a ransom. We look at high-flying business people or children of very wealthy people. We are currently, as South Africa, we've got the highest rate of kidnappings in Africa. So this is also, this whole skill of not having yourself go into isolation has become such a key skill. I just tried to look it up now, but it's actually so crazy. For every 100,000 people in South Africa, almost 10 get kidnapped every year. So it sounds like 100,000, 10, but I mean, this was something that never happened. You think maybe it's 1 or 2 or 3 people that get kidnapped a year. Movies get made about them. It's that much of an outlier event, but this is becoming more prevalent and a reality for all of us, a new fear being unlocked. It's not just hijackings now, and now you have to be afraid of being kidnapped for a ransom. And this is also becoming very important then for kids. And you also teach the kids. And I'm interested to know, I'm going to get to ages and try to convince people to start jiu-jitsu in a moment. But why do you think it's important for kids? And obviously, I mean, I've been in that studio. Some of those kids, they don't even come up to my knee and I'm a shorty. That's how tiny these kids are that get on the mat. And it's so cute to watch them. But why is it important for children to learn some kind of martial arts, some kind of self-defense? And how have you seen changes happen in children participating in jiu-jitsu?
Exactly the same way that you would see that energy shift, that aura change that I speak of when I see it, in particular with my ladies who hop onto the mat. I see that same transformation in children. Now, we've had a lot of shy children hop onto the mat, very quiet, soft-spoken children hop onto the mat. And this could be because of a bullying situation that they have experienced at school, or just because they are particularly quiet and shy and gentle-natured children. The concern with that is it's beautiful to have a gentle nature, but this child can become a target for bullying at school. And just as you speak of the rise in abductions, how many parents are complaining about the rise of bullying in schools and not much, or maybe teachers not having the resources that they need in order to address all of this that's happening. Again, there's the complexity of cyberbullying and social media. There's so much more that parents, teachers, and children have to contend with these days. And when kids hop onto the mat, we teach them the same techniques that we would teach our adults, but we don't deal with a bad guy or a perpetrator or attacker. We deal with a bully. What happens if a kid comes up to you at school and pushes you? And it all starts again with that mindset of you are worth defending. So when someone pushes you, hey, when you push me, it makes me feel upset or uncomfortable, and I want you to stop doing that. Because often what happens is they're looking for an easy target just like any other attacker or perpetrator, someone who's not paying attention on their phone, for example, that's an easy target. For children, for a bully, that would be someone who doesn't speak up, who doesn't stand up for themselves, because they know they can do it again and again. Now they build in confidence, and that aura changes and that energy changes. It's important for them to learn self-defense in a martial art so that they gain confidence to defend themselves. But the life lessons and philosophies of martial arts will also teach them how to stand up and use their voice for others. So hopefully you build a strong, sturdy child or gritty child that will defend other people, not be a bully themselves.
Yeah, I think it can be just so great for the community as a whole and going forward. And it's something that I learned, a very important thing that I learned during my short journey in jiu-jitsu is not necessarily the physical skills, but to find to find your voice and not to be afraid to speak up, not to be afraid to shout and draw attention to yourself. We have this class, Matthijs called, Steph refers to it as the shouting class.
Yeah.
And usually if you can spot it on the calendar, you can see that people stay away. They don't want to come to that class. But that is probably the most important class in especially a program like Women Empowerment, because it really gives you that safe space and confidence to find your voice. And to stand up for yourself verbally as well. So, Steph, if we look at, sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, just to give Matthijs a little bit of context, it's literally a class, it's more right at the first phase of an attack. So when someone is approaching you, and we always have we create these scenarios, someone's coming up to you to ask for the time. Yeah. But it's this build-up of, hey, listen, you're making me feel uncomfortable. Back up. And I'm telling my ladies, you need to scream. You need to shout. And they're like, back up.
Very polite.
Yeah.
Back up, darling. Back up.
Very demure.
Come on,
very
back
demure.
up.
Please, sir, please. So it all starts very polite, and you can see them just cringing internally. But I will give you this: when you see, this is the difference between a first time on the mat and ladies who've been through the program for 3 or 4 cycles. They're screaming and shouting and blowing the roof off of the jiu-jitsu gym.
And then the newbie is just like, where am I? Why am I here? I was here to do jiu-jitsu, not screaming.
It's very therapeutic as well, I must say. So if you've had a bad day, the shouting definitely helps release some of that.
So obviously you are very passionate about the women empowerment. And I know, I mean, I've basically walked the journey with Colene and hear all this stuff. And it is also amazing for me to see how she has changed in the last couple of months.
I have changed.
And one of the things that Colene mentioned to me as well, which I find very interesting, is that the principle of jiu-jitsu is also to stay in the fight, not to get necessarily out of the fight, because then you can control the fight. But another thing that I also find quite interesting, there's a couple of people, Colene now, but other people that I know that also practices jiu-jitsu. And there's a specific way they are, very level-headed, almost like that pilot temperament. Is that something that also gets cultivated specifically in jiu-jitsu, that mindset?
Yes. And this is where this brings me back to just like someone's energy. How does their energy change? But I feel like often when it comes to it's actually quite funny, because people find martial arts to be able to defend themselves. And what ends up happening is generally they never get into an altercation. Even if we speak about men get into martial arts that they can learn how to defend themselves. They never end up in a bar brawl. And often the reason of this is because when you know that you can back it up, when a situation starts to escalate and you know you can, you are going to be far more in the mindset of, I'll de-escalate this because I know I can seriously hurt someone. Whereas people with no martial arts background, that's the ones who kind of throw hands. We call them haymakers, swinging punches and have something to prove. I find with jiu-jitsu people, it calms you because now you know you can back it up. And especially with women, this for a man, this could be they won't end up in a bar brawl or a pub fight or anything like that. For women, it's I have more of a chance not to end up in a situation because I will verbally set a boundary because I know I can back it up if it escalates.
Yeah.
What is the one thing that you hope and wish all South Africans knew or that we should start being aware of in order for us to be more safe?
Whew. So I have to only choose one thing, right?
Okay. Two.
Do jiu-jitsu, guys.
I mean, obviously, I'd love to pump jiu-jitsu and Gracie Jiu-jitsu in particular with self-defense. I mean, if I could have everybody do jiu-jitsu, I actually think the nation would be far calmer because it's that whole self-defense mindset. I can defend myself. But I think for anyone, whether it's a child, whether it's a woman, whether it's a man, we're talking about the whole nation as a collective. Just honestly, the mindset and the switch that I'd like to be flipped is that you are worth defending. But how are you going to prove to yourself that you are worth defending? It doesn't have to be jiu-jitsu. I would love it to be, but what are you going to do to seek out in your daily life, whether it's a new skill, whether it's a self-defense course, a gun course, whatever it is, that proves to you that you are worth defending so that if you ever get into these situations, that there's something that you can do about it. You have something in your back pocket that will help you, even if it's a small thing.
Dit was nou die blou belt Jiu-jitsu guru van Colene, swart belt karate chick Stephanie Graham.
Badass Stephanie Graham.
Sy's moerklein, sy's regtig klein, sy's fyn, sy's klein. Sy's 'n klein dingetjie.
Sy's klein, Matthys, maar sy is 'n botteltjie gif. Kan ek vir jou sê, haar reputasie gaan dan vooruit. Ek gaan koop nou dag randomly gaan betaal ek my waterrekening want hulle lewer mos nou vir my hier water af. En nou die ouens wat almal in die waterwinkel werk, hulle doen almal jiu-jitsu.
Ja.
Maar by 'n ander plek, nie by my Gracie Fourways studio nie. Wat die beste studio is, kan ek dit sê. Gracie Fourways, best studio, go there. Anyway, en ons chat nou so van, hoe gaan dit met die, how's it going with the rolling? Jy weet, ons moet 'n lingo. How's it going with the rolling? Yeah, how you finding it clean? Ek sê, no, it's great. And chat, so en die een ou sê randomly, hy sê, but like Stephanie Graham, she's with your studio. I just, geez, that chick is badass. She just brings everyone to ground. Ek is soos, ja, ek staan al so trots, ek sê, ja, she's my coach. Ja, she's amazing. Ja, maar klein gultjie, groot pot gif. Maar 'n amazing mens. En Matthys, amazing lesse wat ek dink ons almal kan leer. En
ons het klaar.
Ek hoop ons kan weer met haar praat oor die principles. Evenal die mense wat ons luister, evenal kom jy nooit op 'n jiu-jitsu mat nie, maar die principles is net so amazing.
Toe ons klaar afgesluit met die onderhoud, het julle gepraat van 'n boek wat enige iemand moet lees. Wat is die boek se naam?
Die boek se naam is The 32 Principles, Harnessing the Power of Jiu-jitsu to Succeed in Business, Relationships and Life.
En dit klink vir my 'n interessante boek. Ek gaan hom aflaai op Audible. Jy sê hy's beskikbaar as 'n audioboek.
En dit is geskryf deur die founder van Jiu-jitsu, Gracie, Brazilian Jiu-jitsu. Daar's baie ander ook. En ja, dis 'n amazing konsep vir my, Matthys, want hy is ook 'n klein mannetjie. Ek meen hy is al oorlede, maar as 'n mens na sy foto's en goed kyk, dink ek hy was dalk kleiner as Stephanie.
Rarig.
En sy hele ding was om 'n martial art so te redefine sodat klein ouetjies ook kan wen.
Ja, dis cool.
En girls kan wen en kinders kan wen. En jy moet sien ook byvoorbeeld in die kinderklasse die tegnieke wat hulle kinders leer om van byvoorbeeld abductors af weg te kom. Of om voordan hulle self nie in 'n situasie te kry waar hulle alleen met 'n abductor is nie.
Ja, ek vind dit
ontvoerder.
Dis een van daai life skills wat ons lyk my nou nodig het. Nog ene. Behalwe om 'n pothole te dodge, is daar nog ene wat ons as Suid-Afrikaanse burgers nodig hê. Maar gelukkig is daar 'n man in Joburg wat 'n plan het. Dis ook een ding wat ons het. Ons het planne.
Jemmel. Matthys, ons Suid-Afrikaners is moerse resilient, nê. Moerse, dit kan nie vir ons wegvat nie. So hierdie ou, sy naam is Tabu Kumalu. So hy was 'n boemelaar. Ek dink maar hy's nog steeds 'n boemelaar, maar hy het maar eintlik maar sy geldjie gemaak om sy rente betaal, hoe min dit ook al is, in die middel van Johannesburg, deur allerlei ander goed te doen, te bedel, bietjie te steel, hy kan of wat met dat ook. En toe is hy aangeval op 'n stadium en hy het toe nou 'n permanente injury gekry. Die man is nou op 'n kruk. Daar's 'n beautiful foto as jy wil gaan kyk op Ground Up, op die website Ground Up. Beautiful foto van die man. So hy het toe nou heenkome gevind op die straat by 'n taxi rank in die middel van Johannesburg. En hier het hy 'n business opportunity gesien. Die taxi rank is vuil, almal pee oral, dit ruik terrible. Die passasiere is nie gelukkig nie, die taxi-owners en die drywers is nie gelukkig nie, en hy begin toe die bucket pee system. Hy het nou 'n klomp emmers daar, maar dis soms seker makeshift emmers, Matthys. As jy nou die foto gaan kyk, dis soos dromme wat hy van ergens af gekry het. Dis nie proper emmers wat jy nou by Westpac gaan koop.
Adidas emmer nie.
Nee, dis nie 'n Adidas emmer nie. Dis soms so 'n makeshift emmer wat hy nou oopsny en hy het 'n lid.
Maar dit is iets
nee,
soos
dis Addis.
Ja,
Addis, ja.
Okay.
En hy sny vir hom so lid wat die deksel ook nou toemaak. En dan het hy nou so op hierdie spesifieke foto wat ek nou kyk, staan hy nou hier met sy kruk en hier's nou 4 van hierdie makeshift emmers en 'n ou wat nou hier staan en pee met 'n teken teen die muur vir R2. So by hierdie taxi rank kan jy nou in sy emmer kom pee vir R2 en dan dispose hy nou van die urine. Ek neem aan maar seker maar terug in ons riviere in. Hy gooi dit in 'n drein. Hy sê hy gooi dit in 'n drein, maar
okay.
ja, ons
so dan gaan dit na die jeuksky toe. Maar
dit gaan na die jeuksky toe, waar almal gedoop word.
Is al hokkie?
Nee, dis oop. Nee, dis oop. So it's definitely not female friendly and definitely not number 2 friendly.
O.
No.
Okay.
Nee, so as jy kan staan in peace as 'n man, dan is dit jou plek om Anyway, so Tabu, Matthys, is baie ingenome met homself, want hy maak nou 'n average van R70 'n dag. En dit hou hom aan die lewe.
R70?
Taxi-owners en drywers love hom.
Dis hoeveel R2?
R2 per pee. Gaan jy vir ons uitwerk hoeveel mense pee daar?
Ja, so dis 35 mense.
35 mense 'n dag wat pee in Tabu se emmer.
Okay. En hy sien 'n booming business.
Hy sien dit as 'n booming business, want Matthys R70 vir iemand wat niks gehad het nie, is baie. Dis baie.
Ek onthou altyd, toe dit in een van my vorige lewens, as mense consulting doen en al daai tipe van goeders, dan sê almal altyd, maar ek wil meer geld hê. En dan haal ek gewoonlik uit my beursie uit 'n R5 of R10. En ek sê vir hulle, daar het jy meer geld. En as mense so heeltemal verboureerd, want you have to be very specific, as jy sê jy wil meer hê. Hoeveel meer? Maar R70 vir iemand wat niks gehad het nie, is baie geld.
Ja, as jy uitwerk vir 'n maand, maak Tabu R2100. Dis baie meer as wat baie van ons huiswerkers maak.
Ja, is amper minimumloon.
Buckets en sy kruk. So ek dink dis nogal inspiring. It's a bit gross, but it's super inspiring.
Well, at least he's doing something. En mense sê dit stink minder soos pee. So, he's contributing.
Ja.
Ek wonder of Tabu nou die wet gaan opstoot. Of gaan jy nou 'n bietjie meer vra om dit wet op te stoot.
Iemand moet hom laat weet as hy maar dan gaan fucking SARS vir hom kom. So kom ons hou hom eerder net onder die radar.
Ja, dis die kasie economy.
Ek dink hy met al daai pee buckets het ek nog al 'n idee waar hy hulle kan leegmaak by 'n SARS hoofkantoor.
Nee, ek dink hy kan dit sommer net daar by Letuli huis gaan gooi. Dis net 'n afstraat van hom. Ek dink dit is baie meer van pas. Hoorie, dan sal 'n vrou wat haar 10de kind het.
Okay, Matthijs, ek gaan die storie vertel. Ek wil jou opinie hoor oor die storie.
Okay.
So hier is 'n vrou in Duitsland, haar naam is Alexandra Hildebrand.
Ja, ek's klaar van.
Ja, sy het op die ouderdom van 66, haar 10de kind gehad, haar 10de keer ma geword.
Ja.
Okay, sonder IVF. So this was all natural.
All natural.
Haar groot ding is, ja, hulle het haar gevra vir advies, hoe kry sy dit reg? Sy sê sy was nog nooit op enige wat mense in Afrikaans birth control, voorboedmiddels, ja. Sy was nog nooit op enige van hulle nie. Okay, maar hier is nou vir my die interessante deel van die storie, dis nie wat ek jou opinie wil hoor. So 66, haar 10de kind is nou net gebore. Sy klink vir my sy is ekonomies nog baie aktief. Sy besit en bestuur die Muurmuseum by die Checkpoint Charlie, die bekende grenspos van die Berlynse muur, tussen die voormalige Oos- en Wes-Berlyn. So ek neem aan daar ontvang sy nou baie toeriste en so aan. So sy is nog baie ekonomies aktief. Sy lyk goed volgens haar foto. Haar eerste kind is in die laat 1970s gebore. So hierdie kinders range van, die eerste een is 46 jaar oud, dan nou, Sletvana is 46 jaar oud, sy is die oudste. Sy word gevolg deur Artyom, wat 36 is, 'n tweeling, Elisabeth en Maximilian, hulle is 12. Okay, so nou gaan ons van 36 na 12. Alexandra is 10, Leopold is 8, Anna is 7, so nie baie gewag daar tussen Alexandra, Leopold en Anna nie. Maria is 4, Katharina is 2, en dan haar nuutste, wat ek nou nie die naam van haar sien nie, is pasgebore op 'n goeie gesonde gewiggeboorte van 3,54 kilogram. Ja, so
Is almal dieselfde man?
Almal is hulle sê dit actually nie in die berig nie, Matthijs. Jy sien, jy gaan nou kom met so 'n vraag. Hulle sê dit actually nie in die berig nie. Sy sê wel, ek eet baie gesond, ek swem gereeld vir 'n uur, hardloop 2 ure, rook of drink nie en het nog nooit voorboedmiddels gebruik nie.
Miskien moes sy. Maybe moes sy.
Ek het gewag vir jou opinie oor hierdie.
Want dit is maar behalwe dat dit belaglik is dat iemand van 66 'n kind het. Ek weet dit is walglik, dink ek, actually. Dink ek jy doen daai kind 'n ongelooflike onreg aan. Want so hoe oud gaan jy wees? Ek weet sy moet hoe oud wees? 86. Dan is die kind 20. What's your plan? Wat is jou plan?
So Alexandra se respons op jou vraag is, Matthijs, daar is 'n neiging om onvriendelik te wees jeens kinders. Baie mense sal hulle oordeel hersien sodra hulle kontak met kinders het. Ons behoort mense aan te moedig om meer kinders te hê, Matthijs. So jy sal nie verstaan nie, want jy het nie kinders nie.
Nee, ek sal nie verstaan nie. Nee, ek kan glad nie verstaan nie. Ek verstaan haar ook nie. En ek dink net sy doen 'n onreg aan die kinders.
Al wat ek net wonder is, jy weet, dis my great, maar weet jy wat gaan teen gebeur? Daai 46-jarige kind, die oudste kind, gaan op die einde van die dag die jongste kind grootmaak. And that's also not right.
Exactly.
Ek weet, imagine nou, Matthijs, ek en jy is nog nie 46 nie. Fokke naby, maar nog nie 46 nie.
Ja.
Okay, maar ons kan so tipe van met Alexandra se oudste kind, jy weet,
assosieer.
Resoneer.
Ons is dieselfde.
Ja, selfe generasie, selfe vibe. Kan jy nou dink, Lucia het nou 'n baba, wat jou boetie is. Deline het nou 'n dogter, 'n kind wat nou my sussie is.
Kakkereenboog. Nee, dis daar wat ek nou net sê, okay, you do you, boo. Dis klaar. Ek is uit.
Ja, ek weet ek was baie nuuskierig om jou opinie te hoor, want ek weet eintlik nie nog wat's my opinie oor nie. In die breedte het ek nog altyd gevoel dat as jy 'n desire het om kinders te hê, dan is dit great. Ek het nog nooit 'n desire gehad om kinders te hê nie. So as jy 'n desire het om kinders te hê, great, doen dit, maar maak ook dan seker dat jy die means het om kinders te hê.
Ja.
So in daai selfe opinie moet ek dan ook sê, Alexandra Hildebrand, as jy teen die ouderdom van 66 nog die vermoë het en 'n plan het om na hierdie kinders te kyk, then by all means go forth. Go forth. Jy maak op vir my en Matthys wat nie gaan kinders hê nie.
Ja, en vir die helfte van China wat 'n probleem het met kinders. Maar ja, ek is eintlik 'n klein bietjie stom geslaan, want ek kan nie dink dat 'n nugter denkende mens van 66 dink dis 'n goeie idee om nou 'n kind op daai ouderdom in die lewe te bring nie. I don't get it. I don't get it.
Ja, het jy tyd vir 'n laaste storie, Matthys?
Laaste storie.
Okay, so 'n vlenier van United Air. Dis 'n storie oor 'n vlenier van United Air. Jy weet, ek onthou ek het 'n onderwyser gehad wat altyd vir my gesê het, ek dink was in start 1, juffrou Loots. Sy het altyd, ek was nogal geneig om goed te vergeet, soos 'n handboek by die huis te vergeet of 'n pennesakkie by die huis te vergeet. En dan sy altyd die comment gemaak: Colene het alweer sonder haar pennesakkie skool toe gekom. Julle, dit is soos 'n soldaat wat sonder 'n geweer oorlog toe gaan. Het enige van jou onderwysers dit ooit gesê, Matthys?
Gereeld.
Okay, so ja, mense kan baie embarrassing oomblikke hê in verskillende karriers, as jy nou goed vergeet, maar ek dink the most embarrassing thing wat ek nog ooit gelees het, maar so entertaining. 'n Vlenier op United Air wat uitgevlieg het van, ek dink New York tot Shanghai. Die vliegtuig moes halfpad of ergens in die vlug, ek neem aan redelik vroeg in die vlug, omdraai, want die kaptein het sy paspoort by die huis vergeet. So, rarig, as jy nou 'n bietjie opgefok het vandag in jou werk, moenie worry nie, want hierdie kaptein het sy paspoort by die huis vergeet. Hulle moes toe nou die vliegtuig omdraai, Matthys, en teruggaan. United Air sê hulle het gelukkig daar 'n nuwe crew on standby gehad, wat onmiddellik die vlug oorgevat het en die passasiers weer teruggevlieg het Shanghai toe. Hi shame, maar kan jy dink met wat se kakdeel hierdie vlenier nou? Hy is soos die brunt of every joke in every pilot kuier vir die volgende 3 jaar.
Donderd sou ek gewees het as ek 'n passasier was wat nou moet terugvlieg en dan weer verder vlieg. Ek hoop dat United het actually vir daai mense 'n refund gegee, because that would piss me off. Maar okay, ek is 'n grumpy old man.
Ja, United was baie gekomplimenteer in hoe hulle die situasie gehanteer het. Hulle het van hulle geland het binne 2 ure die passasiers weer teruggekry op 'n vliegtuig. Vir hulle apparently enorme geskenkbewyse gegee het wat hulle kon spandeer op either die lughawe, ek dink dit is JFK, ek praat onder korreksie, kan nie onthou nie, en Shanghai. So die passasiers was eintlik toe nou nie te kwaad oor dit nie. Weerens, customer service.
Customer service.
That can give them something.
Dis al wat belangrik is. Maar dan is dit nou dit. Dit was aan KLETS van die 2 April op 2025. Dankie dat jy geluister het. En ons is volgende week terug met nog 'n KLETS. Onthou om vir ons 'n mail te stuur of 'n boodskap te los en te like en te share. En te doen wat jy moet doen. En ons sien jou volgende week.
Gaan doen Jui-jitsu, julle. Gaan doen Jui-jitsu.
Kyk, toe ek nog jong was, my ouma het altyd gesê, raai het vir my weer, ja, ek hoor ek dit mense sê. Soms hoor ek maar net, en ek almal is goed.